Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be doing a review of the Aokfly 2306 2400kv motor. So let's just get right into it. So they come in this little plastic box here, which actually quite nice that they do this because this keeps the cost down. And of course you also get a bag with 4 3x6 screws to attach the motor to your arm and a lock nut to hold the propeller on. So this motor is aimed at the more budget market. It definitely comes in pretty cheap at anywhere between $13 and $15 from Banggood. From what I've seen it, however, if you do buy 4 of them at a time and you use a coupon code, it can get them down to like $12.39 a piece. So it really is a nice low price motor here. Features that you'll see on higher end motors: it does have a screw to retain the shaft. However, I have actually not been able to get any of these out. The screw itself is 1.5 millimeters. You can see all the scratch up marks I have here. And whatever Loctite they used on the shaft, this thing will not budge. And they are reverse threaded, these screws, to actually turn them left to get them out. However, I tried on all the motors I have, and either the screw stripped or the screw itself sheared in half. So the head came out and part of it's still in the shaft. So really, unfortunately, I don't think you're going to be able to take these apart, or at least I wasn't. And I did try using my soldering iron to heat up the screw to help loosen whatever Loctite they have on there, but it still didn't do anything for me. So I can't take the bells off, but they still flew fine for me. If we look at the magnets, they are decently thick, and hopefully you can tell that they are curved, are arc magnets, and the air gap is very, very small there. It's a very notchy feeling motor. It isn't a naked bottom design, which is kind of a bummer, so it's a little bit heavier, but that's not a huge deal. We do have a hollow steel shaft up top here, which is pretty nice. And we do have single-stranded high-temp windings in the bottom there. Not the neatest, but they work just fine. And we do have a nice, decent amount of wire here, which is great for use with 4-in-1 ESCs. And it looks like it's about 120 millimeters long. So plenty long enough for most builds. Now there are different versions of this motor. There's a white one and this green one, and they also have the 2400kv and the 2650kv, and they also have the clockwise and counterclockwise threaded shaft. So there's a few options to pick from. And this one, these motors aren't actually anodized aluminum. They are 7075, however this is painted on. Hopefully you can see this scratching that I did when I was trying to get this screw out. Just shows you that it is painted on, so if you do bang these up in a couple crashes, similar to what the Emax white motors did, hopefully, I'm not exactly sure what these are, but I've seen a lot of people where these are all scratched up and they turn silver, so that's kind of what happens with this, is that this paint is going to rub off. But once again, low cost motor, not a big deal. Alright, so let's get a weight on this guy. It is going to be pretty heavy. We have the full length of wires here. So let's just see, it comes out to about 34.36 grams. So, it's not that bad for a 2306. Definitely not the lightest, but it is not the heaviest. And just for real quick comparison, the white Emax motor with pretty much the same exact length of wires comes out to 35.2. So it actually is a little bit lighter than that. Alright, so that was just a real quick overview of the motor. So let's get them on a quad, and then we'll take it outside and do a line of sight and FPV testing. So let's get to that. Alright, so here we are for a line of sight test of the Aokfly 2306 2400kv motors. Have them installed on a Hyperlite V1 floss frame. We have the Dial Cyclone V2 T5046C. We have the Foxier Mini. We have a SpeedX IS 30 amp 4-in-1. We have an XSR under there. We have a Hyperlite F4, TBS Unify HV Race, and a TBS Triumph there. And on for the battery, we have a 1300 Tattoo R-Line 95C 4S. So this build is the exact same as it was before. All I did was swap in the motors, and before I was running 2205 2500kv motors. So really the only thing that has changed here is the motors.
Welcome to Open.
So it'll be better to compare how they fly on a light setup compared to the 2205, which I was running. Okay, disarm it, and here we go. Just bring it out here. Apologize for the lighting, it is a little bit late in the day. So it sounds like I'm having quite a bit of oscillation. I'm just using the same tune that I had on the 2205 motors. So the tune's certainly not optimal. And these are low kV motors, 2400, but they're probably a little lower than they are rated at. So if you're going for a light build, I definitely would recommend the 2600, 2650 versions of these, but they weren't in stock at the time. But these definitely feel really smooth. They just seem to have good control over these props, and they're pretty smooth. Top speed obviously not great, 2400 kV, and the terrible oscillation. Still pretty respectable on these props. Obviously the tune is far from optimal. They don't seem to have that really any more power than 2205s actually. Probably because they are such a lower kV on this, but they just seem to have more smooth control over the prop. Yeah, lots of float time there. They look pretty cool with the green here. But, yeah. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Alright, that was good enough for line of sight. On a 1300, let's just see how it's doing. Oh yeah, not even barely warm. So the current draw definitely doesn't seem too high. The motors themselves are actually a little bit warm, but with that kind of oscillation from the tune not being right for these motors, honestly, I'm really surprised that these things aren't burning hot, because that sounds like de-oscillation there. So it definitely needs retune, but good enough for line of sight. So let's do some FPV. Alright, so here we have the Aokfly 2306 2400 kV for some FPV, and I did change to a 1550 R line, as well as I adjusted the PIDs, basically just the P and D games I dropped quite a bit, since obviously it's having quite a bit of oscillations in the line of sight flight. So I am still having some full throttle, but definitely sounds a lot better. Let me just get used to it here. Not used to this quad in general. So yeah, the top end certainly isn't great. These are low kV motors. That was my mistake. I should have waited till the high kV was in stock. So they are a little bit lackluster, but they have good power and control overall. Not bad. Let's see how they pull out of this. Oh yeah, pretty good stopping power. Whoa, whoa.
1 minute.
What is going on? Something's having a desync or something. Alright, so here we are back again. I'm not really sure what that was. I think it was an ESC desync. Let's just continue flying around here. So yeah, just really not that powerful because of the low kV, but they just definitely are smoother than the 2205 in their power delivery in their corners. Whoop, clipping the branches. They just definitely seem to handle the corners better. Let's take this corner at full throttle out here.
9, 8, 7.
Really slow because of the KV, but you know, you get the idea. Hopefully,
2,
performing just fine.
0.
And for a $12 motor with coupons, certainly not bad. Alright, battery's getting low. Let's bring it in. So let me check how long a flight time that was. That was just about 2.5, 3 minutes there. So yeah, not too bad on the amp draw. Alright, so here we are back inside again to finish up my thoughts on the Aokfly 2306 2400kv motor. So like I was saying in the flight testing, I did get the 2400kv, which is a pretty low kV for this light of a build. This build is, I believe, about 250, 260 grams as is. Although with these heavier motors, it's probably closer to 260, 270 grams, but it's still a pretty nice light build. So having the 2650 kV on here would have been much better for overall power and speed. And I would say to get the 2400 kV, if your build is over somewhere around 330 grams, is probably where I draw the limit to switch to the lower kV if your dry weight is there. Otherwise, go with the higher kV. In terms of power overall, they definitely weren't astonishing, but it wasn't that bad. It seemed like a pretty decent all-around motor. It was pretty smooth overall. And for $12, it certainly wasn't bad. And it wasn't that amp hungry either. It didn't really kill the battery too much. I did a 2.5 minute FPV flight there with some decently hard flying, but my battery was still at 15.1 volts on a 1550 R line there, so I probably had another 30 seconds to probably almost a minute left of that type of flying. So these will definitely get you through a 2-minute multi-GP race, even flying at pretty much as fast as you can go. Obviously, they're $12 motors, so they're not that great. Once again, just reiterating the issue I had with the set screws to take the shaft off. Just kind of annoying. Shows the build quality is not. It's a little bit subpar, I'd say, and with the paint coming off there, but it's acceptable. It doesn't really matter unless you really dang up a motor. You don't need to take the bell off. It is nice that they want the set screw, but in this case, not being able to take it out definitely kind of sucks. So, do I recommend this motor? Obviously, it's a pretty cheap budget option. I think if you want to go really budget, I think the Racer Star, their BR2205S, the S versions are actually not that bad, and I believe they're below $10. So I think if you're really on a tight budget, that's where you want to be. However, if you can spend just a few dollars more and get this will probably be a lot better. Especially for a little bit of a heavier build, the 2306 is going to help there. However, if you have a decently light quad, I'd say under 280 grams, I really think going with this motor. This is a 2205. It's really nice quality, really good performance overall. This was the motors that I had on here before I switched it off. And this specifically is the Race Day Quads 2205, 2450, but it's also the same as the Hyperlight V2 2205 and the Brother Hobby V2 returner. They're all the same motor. These the Pirate Flip and Race Day Quads versions just use better aluminum and different color schemes, but they're OEM from Brother Hobby. But this is a $13 motor, and I think it's just a really fantastic beginner to intermediate to advanced, even advanced motor on a lighter frame like this. But if you are packing a little bit more weight, which if you are less experienced and more beginner and on a budget you probably are going to be, the 2306 jump up in the stator is probably going to be better for you overall. And it's pretty much the same price, if not a little bit cheaper than these motors. So yeah, that's going to bring us to the end of the review here. Not great, but certainly not terrible for a budget motor. So there will be a link down below if you're interested. Please subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next video.